All right. So there's a numerous amount of assets available to you as folks across the state to stay informed, and we're also always adding to it. So I encourage you. We will make sure you get the link to the website, and it also has information on how to register for the newsletter. We'll make sure you get that information. Today's webinar is focused on really looking at tourism behavior and how a non-game city, a non-game host city is preparing for this opportunity. So while the games may be in Seattle, we do know that tourists are going to come to the region. And if you are not Seattle, how are you viewing this opportunity and preparing for those visitors and promoting your region? We also know that folks will be going up and down from Canada. We're going to learn today about how those tourists make decisions and where they go, how long they stay, how much they spend, all sorts of things to get you thinking about your community and opportunities. So we likely said, please don't put the questions in the chat. Please put them in the Q&A, and I facilitate those after each speaker. And we will move right now to Rose Noble, who is the president and CEO of Visit Spokane. So that big city in the Inland Empire on the other side of the state, home to my college, Gonzaga University. So I appreciate Rose being here. And Rose, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Lynette. Thank you for having me. Love Gonzaga. We have a lot of people that attend that university and end up sticking around in Spokane, and we really appreciate that. Like Lynette had noted, we're talking about fan zones and FIFA and all of the things that are happening in Washington State that are outside of Seattle actually hosting the official matches. Spokane, as you may or may not know, is the second largest city in the state, and we are really excited to be included as a fan zone as well as a potential base camp scenario. So we'll go ahead and click through to the next slide and get started on a few things. Just a quick little overview about Visit Spokane. We are the official regional DMO, and our mission is to showcase the range of offerings to the fullest extent with the intention of attracting visitors. And those visitors end up spending money that enhance our overall visitor experience. So the main goal is to see overnights. We are funded through overnights, and overnights also fund a few of our other event promotions. And we like to talk about all segments, which would include sports marketing, even though we do have a separate sports commission here in Spokane. We'll go through the next slide. So just a little history or context, Spokane has been designated a fan zone site. We're grateful for that. We've also have the potential to be hosting a team as a base camp, one of a few base camps in the Pacific Northwest. We know there'll be base camp scenarios in Vancouver and Portland, as well as around the Seattle area. Of course, we won't know if we're chosen as a base camp until a team selects us, which will be after the December 5th deadline of when FIFA announces what teams are playing where in the official match. A fan zone for us is going to be official watch zone party for 1 to 3 of the broadcast events. Originally, there was discussion about doing all 6, but as you can see a little bit further down on the slide, there's some PR considerations on one of those is funding to host a fan zone event. But we're really excited to have a significant partnership with Gonzaga University, who is doing some major upgrades to facilities to be able to host a base camp, a practice team for a base camp, upgrading their turf, upgrading some dorm scenarios, and some of the other facilities that come with weightlift and training and such. Why does this matter to Spokane? Events drive tourism, which we're going to hear more data points later on in the presentation from Expedia. We're going to let her talk about a lot of those. But we follow all of those sports travel trends, and as well as Spokane has a history of hosting events for a long time. In fact, the Tourism Bureau was founded after we hosted the World's Fair in 1974. And we like to make sure that there's plenty of small business opportunity that comes with us hosting these events. Some PR consideration for us going after the opportunity to be a base camp as well as wanting to be designated a fan zone. Our elected officials are extremely excited and interested in us being involved. So we have some support and pressure from them to make sure that we became a fan zone and bid to receive the base camp, which we were successful. There is limited funding, so although the elected officials are excited, they're not necessarily opening the checkbook to set aside dollars. So we're navigating through that. What kind of local grant opportunities and other opportunities might exist for us to tap into funding. So we're not digging too deep into our own general fund. We also have a major community excitement for soccer and for FIFA. In 2023, we had a new soccer stadium, which is actually on the screen, built in our downtown. We house two semi-professional teams, which is great, and we have a lot of crowd participation that comes to those games. And then another thing that we need to consider throughout this whole process is actually level setting the overnight stays expectations. And I will get to that in the next slide, which we can go to. So for Spokane specifically, although we are home to Hoop Fest and Bloomsday and a lot of these major events that are year-round that bring in a lot of foot traffic, as well as our convention business and our sports recruitment business through our track and all of the things that our commission brings to the area. There's really specifically two events that we're kind of modeling our fan zone operations as well as marketing and community engagement off of. Like I noted before, we are kind of level setting the hoteliers on the expectation of overnights. While we are excited to have as many visitors as possible come to Spokane, we do know that a lot of people will be heading to Seattle to watch the actual matches, and that in most cases, the fan zone opportunity will be more of our regional base. People that might not want to go all the way to the west side. Maybe we'll pull from some Montana and Idaho traffic, but most likely it's going to be a driving radius into Spokane and or the people that actually live in Spokane. And there's two events that we've really done, I think, a decent job as a destination in welcoming visitors and also having a community focused lens too. And that would be our NCAA games that we have. We've been in the men's NCAA rounds for quite a while for the championship rounds. Last year we were able to host the round 1 and 2 of the bracket for the women's category. We were at capacity for the whole month of March due to some sports tourism, but specifically for NCAA weekend, filling hotels and restaurants and entertainment venues. And for the first time, we did kind of like a community-wide watch party scenario, working with Spokane Sports Commission, was able to handle those operations. They did an excellent job, and they looped in our Downtown Spokane partnership to assist in partner communications and digital toolkits to make sure that businesses had everything they needed to talk about and promote all of the things that were happening in and around the tournament times during the NCAA 1 and 2 rounds. And that was a great success. We also were able to participate as a partner in the park activation, where we welcome visitors from all over to community infused events and happenings in our park, which is only a few hundred feet away from the arena where the games were being played. Another event that we hosted in 2024 is something we're kind of taking some of our shaping for the fan zone in 26. It was our celebration of Expo, 50 years since we hosted Expo. I know Seattle hosted Expo as well, but Spokane is very proud of the fact that we were the smallest destination to host the World's Fair. And it was really what kind of jolted us into the tourism landscape. That is when the Tourism Bureau was founded. A lot of our hotels were resurrected during that time. And our visitation really kind of took off after we hosted that event. So 50 years was celebrated in 2024. There was a lot of money and a lot of partners invested in having a celebration. And it primarily ended up being kind of a community engagement and pride event where we were able to leverage what was happening in the community for visitors that were maybe coming during that time, but it wasn't necessarily geared towards visitors to necessarily plan their entire vacation trip just around this celebration. That event really was a year and a half long's worth of planning. Of course, we had a little bit more control over what was going to happen at that event since we were hosting the event, and with FIFA, we're waiting on all of those details that actually come down from FIFA and then come into Seattle and then get pushed out our way. But the Expo 50 celebration really demonstrated the ability to have a lot of partnerships involved, including private and public, as well as build for momentum to welcome any visitors that might be in the area or might have actually traveled specifically for the celebration of Expo 50. And just to give you a little bit more context, you can see on the graphic here, that was May 4th through July 4th that we held those events. So quite a few weeks where we had activation and activity, tapping into multiple pillars, including tribal, had a very active presence in Expo 50th celebration. So we'll go to the next slide here. So, taking kind of some pros and cons from both of those events is really what we've leaned into planning for our own fan zone and potential base camp scenario here in Spokane. We have an interesting scenario here where we are the official destination management organization for the region, but we also do have a separate sports commission, so they are completely separate from us. While Visit Spokane was involved in the recruitment to become a fan zone and a base camp and working with the hotels and working with Seattle to get that to happen, we have now shifted to a dual partnership where Spokane Sports is going to be handling all the operations of our fan zone, and Visit Spokane is going to lean into the PR and marketing of that event. So kind of what we're working on, and we're still ironing out the details like many of you are across the state. Official watch parties are going to happen in our downtown USL Stadium, which was built and opened in 23. That is something that our local mayor and local elected officials want to see happen. We want to activate that space, and the uniqueness of Spokane's downtown footprint. It's all in walking distance to hotels and restaurants, and even Gonzaga for that matter. So there's a plan to activate our pedestrian path, which happens to be the Centennial Trail, from the park and the stadium to Gonzaga University. So if the team is practicing, if we're chosen, we can have some pedestrian activity to go watch practices and then navigate into the park and over to the activities for potential watch game scenarios or beer gardens that might exist outside of practice stuff. There's a heavy lean on some partnerships with our USL teams, which are Velocity, the men's teams, Zephyr is the women's team, and then of course Gonzaga University players, to have them active in participating in workshops and trainings and autograph sessions and such during our fan zones. Also working with youth sports to have workshops and trainings. Attached to that would be access for underprivileged youth and communities in our region to have reduced transit and free transit from not only their residents, but if there are any offsite sports workshops, to bring them in, shuttle them into our fan zone. Of course, we do know that the state did grant funding for transit specifically to tackle congestion, but there's also some creativity that we can work around in with the congestion dollars. So we're talking heavily with our Spokane Transit Authority to bring them on as a major partner to assist with some marketing. In addition, there's been some beer garden regulations lifted that might not sound like a big deal to many of you, but in Spokane, that is a big deal for us. We have some pretty strict regulations on what constitute as a beer garden, where they can be located, all ages and such. So for the entire year, we have a lift on what we usually do for beer gardens, and the city has specifically asked for activation of beer garden outside of the fan zone and in the park, which is located again just steps away from where we will host the actual watch parties. So we plan on partnering with some local breweries to activate that space and have that available. In addition to our official watch parties, due to funding and also due to logistics and capacity of not only Visit Spokane's team and the marketing side, but on the Spokane Sports Commission side, we're going to be having some non-official offsite fan zone watch parties and working with partners. This also allows us to navigate the loophole of some of those sponsorship and branding limitations that are very strict through FIFA, so that we can include local breweries and partners that might not necessarily be able to pop up or activate in the official watch zone scenario. Just like many of you, we're working on the curated app to have a digital experience along with all the other fan zones in the state, to have a digital soccer experience here in Spokane. And we've just been curating more information with that team on kind of where we're going to have our app locations be. We're excited about that. Excited to include some tribal focus and a very cool immigrant leaning restaurant scenario. So we have kind of a tie into some of those international roots in our community, which will be app stops in Spokane. In addition, working on staycation giveaways with our hotel and attraction partners. This is not only a good tool for us to gather information to add to future marketing, but we also share this information with any of the partners that participate in these giveaways so that they are also adding to their email list and marketing materials. So we're trying to gather some legacy contact stuff beyond just the event and really see us be able to send segmented information to sports enthusiast fans, both local and outside of the local area through our local hotel and attraction partners. Um, Community-focused marketing and engagement. This is where we are working with transit. We have just had a really great conversation where they're going to come in at essentially a title sponsorship amount to be on all of our marketing and communications that Visit Spokane will execute through our team and on our channels. And we will match the amount that they're putting in through some in-kind and general fund dollars that we put aside. But really happy to hear that the Spokane Transit is excited to work with us, utilize our channels. We have the ability to build all of that out in our newsletters, our social media, our website. Some of our already pre-scheduled print materials and such, like our visitor guide and some of the summer guide stuff that we already have dollars set aside to pay for, and looking forward to them coming in as a major partner on those spends. Next page. So how do we tie in for small businesses that want to be involved with kind of what we're doing and what the Sports Commission is doing for the fan zone? We want to do as much as we can with on-site activations that is within the limitations of sponsoring and branding. We have some ideas on activating kind of like the outside space outside of the stadium that might fall out of the strict sponsorship branding scenarios. Of course, we are, just like many of you, waiting on approval from FIFA to check off on the companies and branding things that we can and cannot do. So we're kind of subject to what they say back, but doing the best we can to make sure that there's local makers and creators that are able to be involved in a close proximity to the official fan site, and if not in the fan site scenario. Downtown spillover, so promotions tied to the event. We are working with DSP, our Downtown Spokane partnership, to also facilitate essentially like a deals pass in a non-official capacity, to where businesses in downtown will have promotions tied to our event, such as show your fan zone wristband, or however we end up noting that someone has attended a fan zone, and they would get a discount or soccer inspired situational material, as well as like menus and merchandise and entertainment. For storytelling and marketing amplification, this is really where we shine as a DMO, and we have plenty of opportunities on our channels already to work with small businesses, and we will have a specific soccer focused lead up, and again, anything that has the official FIFA fan zone branding, we have to be extremely curated, but we're going to have adjacent type of materials on all of our channels that businesses can be involved in. We even work with local realtors on our relocation guide, so there's maybe an opportunity for us to tell a story on a relocation scenario for anyone that might be considering. As look at us, we've been picked up on an international promotional series attached to FIFA, which is pretty cool. Business stories that are tied to global celebration are ones we're going to really lean heavily into. We're fortunate in Spokane to have many universities that we have a good student base of international students. We also have, we are a welcome city. We have quite a bit of immigrant opportunities for business as well as services. So we will be working with those businesses and basically doing some storytelling through all of that to the best of our ability to make sure that we have a really inclusive, welcoming spirit in all of our marketing. And then again, just to reiterate, the Spokane Transit has generously agreed to partner with us and pay for a lot of our digital placement promotions so that we do not have to tap into our own lodging tax general fund to cover that. Next page. Businesses can leverage these efforts as well if they're not even necessarily working directly with Visit Spokane. Aligning with the major partners Again, the Sports Commission, I have on here, Gonzaga is one. The Kalispel Tribe of Indians, they own Northern Quest Resort, which is the hotel that will be housing a team if we are chosen for the base camp. There's opportunities to partner with transit on bus routes. If businesses are on specific routes, they can activate and do some work on the way to and from the fan zone scenario. And then, of course, we have our public facilities district who is housing the event, and then our USL Pro teams have opportunities to partner with as well. So there's plenty of opportunities for some of the our small businesses that might not be experience-based business, but adjacent and still wanting to be involved to partner with these other groups to also leverage what's going on. Of course, we'll have a full creative digital kit that will have event tags and shareable promotions for businesses to help share, and as well as plug in some of their own stuff. You can kind of think of it more of like we endorse this type of event happening scenario for anyone that's not experience-based. And then experience-based businesses, of course, we want to work with them to create something that they can have running and activated during our fan zone times. Partner with itineraries and packages. That's kind of something that we do on the daily. And then anyone attached to the Spokane youth sports scene, there's opportunity to do programming within the fan zone. And Spokane Sports Commission is activating the operations. They're still working on that because we're still waiting for details to iron out. But it has been expressed to us by our elected officials that there should be some youth sports activated opportunities and workshops. So we're leaning towards that. And then last, those bus route scenarios, we're going to keep plugging that because they're going to be our title kind of sponsor moving forward into this event. I think that might be the last. Let's go to the next. Yep, and that's the last page. So I didn't touch on any of the traveler data because we know Expedia is going to be hopping on the call soon and giving us a lot of data on sports travelers and trends. We are invested heavily in sports tourism here in Spokane, not only in our facilities to where our Spokane Sports does event recruitment into those facilities, but all of our sports marketing. We have quite a few events year round that are sports-based, running, biking, all of our outdoor business, all of those things are bringing in quite a few travelers. But I didn't go into detail with that because I think we're going to see that soon. And I wanted to go more into detail with how a smaller business, whether they were experience-based or adjacent, could leverage what your local DMOs are planning to do in your areas. And I'll kind of leave it at that and see if there's any questions.
Sure thing. All right. There was a question just, we are getting into the traveler behavior, traveler data. But since I previewed that slide deck, I know this question isn't answered. Do you have an estimation of how many people Spokane, the greater Spokane area is expecting?
No, I don't. So we've been told astronomical numbers, and I want to be optimistic and positive, but we don't want to. It's also high season for us with it being midsummer, so we have quite a bit of traffic, quite a lot of other events and entertainment that happen during the same time. So we're cautiously leaning into what we talk about expectations for occupancy, and of course, the leisure traveler is also harder to track than a ticketed contracted hotel room night or a ticketed event. So I don't comfortably have a number to provide in terms of what we're expecting.
That's fair. We do know that our LOC early numbers for the Seattle region is about 750,000 people. And we do know that there is an estimation of 2 billion sets of eyes on the region while we're hosting, and definition of region TBD on that. But we do know there'll be a high volume of visibility for our area. And then of course you don't have the stay expectation, but Brianna has some great stuff in her data. Also, there was a question about, we talking about Seattle FIFA. Seattle games, we will toggle back and forth with the Seattle information, but this webinar is about how a non-game city is preparing, because one of the things that we are picking up both through data that's been collected by other partners and our own just gut instincts is that some folks are not understanding the statewide impact of this opportunity. So we wanted to highlight Spokane's effort there. I really appreciate in your deck as well, like all the ideas around small business activations and how they can play in this space. How are you there? I guess there's a question, expand further on how you are not tapping into LTAC funding and why that is important to do so.
Right. So we are tapping into some of our own LTAC funding. We have LTAC and we have a TPA,
Can you
which is
say what a TPA is real quick?
I'm sorry, a tourism promotion assessment. So
Okay.
we have lodging tax and we also have a fee. We have a $5 fee on every room night in hotels 40 or more, 40 rooms or more. Those dollars are programmed out in our general fund, in our capacity. We do have niche campaigns, but to go kind of back to what are we expecting in terms of overnight stays in relation to FIFA? The 770,000, I think that might be Deloitte numbers, crunching those for the Seattle area. With the official games, I think that is, a more accurate pin. And of course, we want to capture as many of those visitors over to the east side. But the reality is, if they're coming in for a game into Seattle, they're probably not going to leave Seattle to drive to Spokane or fly to Spokane to do a fan zone. So we're kind of waiting on the base camp scenario to understand if a team will choose us, and based on what that team is, if that team has a following, and do we activate, and then do we do some marketing specifically directed to the international fan base of that team, and we could do that through our geo-targeting and fly markets and drive markets. So we have some money set aside in our LTAC funding that we can tap into specifically once we know that announcement. But for now, we're basically shifting our leisure campaign message and using the dollars that we would normally use on a destination awareness campaign during that same time to be a focus of kind of like a FIFA sports focus celebration of all the things that are happening. So quite a bit of money is still going to be used to promote it. We're just not setting aside, we just don't have the capacity to set aside significant dollars to run a niche campaign that we don't have the confidence in the overnights that would refill that pot, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How are you involving your immigrant-owned businesses in these activations?
Yeah, so we've reached out to everyone already and told them that we would like to work with them on programming and to provide them as much information as possible. We have a really great, for example, one example, Feast World Kitchen is a restaurant here that does rotating immigrant chefs. And there's been a few chefs that have been successfully have come out of that to open up their own facilities. So talking with them already about programming, menuing, food and beverage to have an influx of potential international visitors coming in. We're also including what we can in a walking distance from our fan zone scenario for the app. Any of our businesses that might make it into the top tier kind of immigrant owned attraction based business for us to send people to. So it's all beginning and starting. It's starting with communication and then seeing what their capacity is. Most of it is in the food and bev scene for us. It might differ in other areas, but we're going to lean heavily into promoting that.
Great. Okay. And then another question about LTAC funding, but I think you've covered it. You're being selective on how you tap into that based on what you learn from the draw and whatnot. Because you're not a game city,
Mhm.
but you still have FIFA regulations around you and things like that. Can you just tell me a little bit about the hive, the planning group that is really engaged in building out Spokane's experience? Who are the parties there? The reason why I'm asking this question is I've seen the attendee list. I know we have folks from a lot of different fan zones from the west side. So I'd like them to
Mhm.
hear how another fan zone is organizing and preparing for this experience.
Yeah, so the main partners in organizing our fan zone are ourselves, our sports commission, and the city of Spokane. Um, we have we have some second tier partners in terms of youth sports, and Gonzaga. Gonzaga is doing a lot to their own facility, but they're not really helping us organize the event. So they're kind of doing their own thing in adjacent to what we're doing. But the city of Spokane, again, we have elected officials that are really, really excited, and have really, put out some things for us to do, and we've delivered as much as we can and kind of come up with a game plan. because of course we ask them, we can do whatever you want. Do you have extra dollars for us to
It's the money. Yeah.
But for us, it would be us, the Sports Commission, and the City of Spokane. The City of Spokane is limited as a public entity, obviously. Spokane Sports is going to be handling all the operations and logistics. That's what they lean heavy into on a day-to-day. They run amazing events and bring amazing world-class events to our city already. And Visit Spokane will handle marketing, promotions, Partner Connect, local media, PR, all of that stuff that we excel in on a day-to-day as well. So those are the three main partners.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
We are need to move to our next speaker, but what you can certainly do if you have more questions for Rose, because there is a good question about the app, and there is the app
Mhm.
leadership from our local organizing committee, but you talked about kind of that addendum to it. So
Yeah.
we'll work on trying to answer some of those questions in the chat. But for right now, I want to thank Rose for being here, and that this portion of the webinar has been recorded for people to use and will be hosted on our YouTube. But we do need to stop recording now for our next speaker, but don't worry. Brianna has a great QR code at the end of her deck that is going to drive you to this great resource she is sharing with us today. So thank you, Rose.